Welcome to the Careering Podcast, a collection of rants and reckons on all things career, hosted by author and creator of Careering.9, Melissa Davies, and her partner in crime, Kelsey Ingalls. If you're brave enough, take a seat, settle in and listen as we tackle difficult career and workplace issues. Sometimes we'll be wrong, sometimes we'll be right, but we will deliver it with confidence and a touch of colourful language, so it will at least be entertaining.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Careering Podcast. I am your co-host Kelsey, and I'm here with author and creator of Careering.9, Melissa. Hola, Melissa.
I was going to say hola to you too.
I know, I could see it in your faces. I was like, I'll beat you to it. Hola.
Pitched on my line.
Ni hao.
Ni hao.
Kia ora. How you going?
Great. How are you?
I'm bringing a lot of energy this week, apparently.
Yeah, this is your post-COVID high.
Yeah, I think I'm just like, the brain fog is getting to me, and I'm just like coming out hot after a week of COVID.
Fair enough too.
Yeah. How are you feeling after your week of COVID?
Great, actually. Yeah. I seem to be I seem to be shocking everyone by saying what a lovely COVID experience I had, mainly because, not the COVID itself, that bit was gross, but how lovely everyone was. Like, every day I had stuff dropped off. Obviously, you dropped off 2 lots of goodies for me, including a homemade chicken pie, which was insanely delicious. And then,
like, why have chicken soup when you can have chicken pie?
Oh my God, all the butter. So good. So good. Yeah, and so I was really supported through COVID, and I liked having permission to lie around and read my book, so it was good for me.
Nice.
And I feel like because I had all of that support and downtime, I bounced back really well. So, yeah. But you've had like 1 week out.
Yeah. And I think because so busy at work as well, like everything in that COVID week got pushed into this week just gone. And so, like, I had a double week of work coming straight out of COVID.
Oh, God.
And because I, like, tried to do some work with COVID, but, like, when people tell you that there's brain fog, I don't think I had sympathy for what it actually is until now I've had it. And I'm like, oh no, I get it. Like, at one point, I keep telling people, at one point, I was going to unplug the fridge because the sound of the fridge was driving me mental because my brain was just like the headaches and the brain fog, and I was like, I'm just not dealing. So I think coming out of that, rocking straight into a week of work, I think I'm just going to sleep on Sunday. Yeah. Sunday's just going to be a day of sleep.
Nice.
And I say Sunday because Saturday is drinking wine. Yeah.
Not just because it's Saturday. We actually have a birthday party.
But no, it's Saturday. On Saturdays we drink wine. Anyway, so obviously my theme of the week is just fucking rocking into it and getting shit done and surviving. What's your theme of the week?
My theme of the week is how good books are, actually. So
love it.
I'm such a word nerd at the best of times, but what I really appreciated was one of my cousins, she's an avid reader as well, and she says she only reads for pleasure, whereas I read for every reason. I have so many books on the go at once. And it was such a nice reminder to actually have that intention. So with COVID, I read a couple of business books, but the main focus was reading some novels. And it was really nice to fully escape and use my imagination to create the world rather than watching something on screen. I actually felt quite engaged in the process. It was actually really cool. So yeah, my theme of the week is how amazing books are. So
yes, I love it. I understand that. I think, like, with COVID, I couldn't concentrate on TV shows. Like, I just didn't, either that or I just didn't give a fuck. I couldn't deal. And so, like, coming out the other side of COVID, like day 5, 6, I really enjoyed just lying on my couch in the evenings with nothing on, no sounds, and just my book and a candle. And it was real, like, self-care moment.
Yeah. And so how are you going to integrate that moving forward?
Well, I tried to do it after work this week, and I was like, oh my God, nobody talk to me. I don't want to use my brain. I just don't want to deal. So I think maybe more weekend reads is probably the thing. Yeah. How are you going to integrate it in your daily life?
I have already been doing it.
How have you been doing it?
So, again, taking a lesson from my lovely cousin who put into practice that she reads for half an hour before she goes to sleep.
So how do you do that without falling asleep, though? Because that's my problem. I fall asleep and suddenly I wake up and the book, like, hits me in the face.
Maybe you need to go to bed earlier.
Yeah, well,
It's okay to go to bed at 7.
and read for like 6 hours.
Yeah. Did you do it as a kid? I definitely did that as a kid.
I still do it now. Like if I find a novel, I'm just like, oh yeah, but I just need to know what happens next.
one more chapter.
Just one more chapter. It's like the one more episode thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm worse with books than I am with episodes.
Me
actually.
too. I absolutely. If like I find like a good series.
Yeah.
And like, do you do that bit where sometimes after you've read like a really good series and there's no more books left, you just need a bit of a down period with no other books
100%.
because you've got a grieving.
You do have a grieving period. You do. I agree with you. You need to let it all settle, and then you've got to like make a choice to enter a new book realm because you just finally let go of that one.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree because I get so deeply invested in it.
Oh, like the Anne of Green Gables ones, right?
Oh my God. Nothing has ever made me sob so much in my life. Anne of Green Gables is like an obsession. Do you know what? I've actually been to Prince Edward Island and I've been and seen the Anne of Green Gables musical, and I had all the books and I had all the Emma books as well. Like I had even had a porcelain doll. I'm a fucking Anne of Green Gables nerd. You didn't expect that, did you?
No, I love that. Okay, I knew some of that, but I also like now that everyone who chooses to listen to us now knows your secret.
I'm 100%. It's not a secret, and I will die on the hill that Anne of Green Gables is literature gold.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, my niece was saying that she's just finished watching the TV series. I was like, no, you've got to read the books.
Yeah, you don't understand because like it's one of those ones because there's so many books and it covers such a span of your lifetime that it doesn't matter what point in your life you are, Anne of Green Gables is always relevant. It is an important piece of literature.
I agree with you.
I will die on this hill.
No, I agree with you. I might not die on the hill with you, but I agree with you.
Okay, good. And so that's what it sounds like when Kelsey gets on a soapbox.
That was awesome. That was I had no idea we were going to end up there, and I'm going, shit, I'm struggling to find a way to segue into a theme of the week.
I'm gonna segue in by talking about how I've got another soapbox that I want to die on, and it is how bad bosses fucking suck, and sometimes there's no way around it. Yes. And why I think this episode came about and my soapbox came about and where I get really angry, really frustrated is I came across a TikTok this week. I know, on brand for me. And it was of a girl who looks like she's in her early 20s, potentially like first or second job, and she is sobbing at the camera and reading an exchange with her bosses. And I'm just going to play the TikTok so that you can hear just the level of just insanity from this person.
So I've decided I'm going to start a new series called All the Awful Things My Boss Says to Me. So I just started this job literally a month ago, and I literally get yelled at by my manager. Well, not yelled at, but like I literally get told how terrible of a person I am and how unsmart I am. So today, for instance, my CEO, Michelle, wrote that she would love to plan a trip to Utah for everybody to come and work in the Utah office and meet me and to see if I'm a ringer. And I was like, oh, I have no idea what a ringer is, right? Like, I've never heard that term used. So I looked it up, being the resourceful person I am. And the first thing that it pulled up was that I'm a fake or an imposter. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like what my CEO was trying to say. So I go to Urban Dictionary and I read all the ones on Urban Dictionary. There's like something about a hand job, something about like fighting people and using toxic insults, and like somebody that you can bring to a party, like, and like have fun and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, none of those sound like what she's trying to convey in this message. So I did my research, didn't come across anything, figured, like maybe this company has its own inside lingo that I just don't know yet. So I wrote in the group chat and just was like, I have no idea what a ringer is. Okay, great. Like, I'm admitting that I don't know what it is, and I would like to know what it is. So there we go. My manager messages me, and he's like, hey, instead of messaging things like, you don't know what a ringer is, look it up. It's a very common saying. Okay, great. I looked it up. Does not seem like a common saying. And he's like, I just want you to adjust and be more resourceful. Okay, I'm not resourceful. Great, thanks, check. Then he says, it will help you come across as more serious and educated. So now I sound like I'm not educated, even though I'm literally a very educated person. Okay, great. So I just wrote back and I said, you know what, like, I did look it up. There was 5 different definitions. Like, they didn't really coincide with how the conversation went. Like, and so, you know, like, that's why I asked what it was. So then he tells me what it is. Here we go. I finally get my answer. It is someone who enters a competition and ends up being like a pro. He says, next time, ask for help. I can't win for losing.
So I saw that and I was just like, obviously she's quite upset. And it's obviously one example, like, that makes me think that it's one example of many, many things that are happening to her in that organisation where she is not getting on well with her boss. But, like, I just wanted to talk about those situations where you're at work with people and you can't win. Nothing you do is right. Like, she did what she was supposed to. She looked it up. And then when she still said, I still need help, they were like, why didn't you ask? I was just like, this poor person is stuck with this person that is obviously not a good manager. What is she supposed to do? Like, so I wanted to table the topic of bad bosses or bad managers and talk through maybe some ways of dealing with it.
It was really timely because I was working on a section for the book on bad bosses about 2 weeks ago. So I put a blog up about it and I was like, yes, I've actually got some stuff to talk about on this topic too. So super timely. What I found really interesting when I heard that TikTok is my first thought was that the manager is gaslighting her. Like
100%. Like, just why didn't you do this thing that you literally just did? Yeah. And she's just this poor girl. You can see she's at her wit's end.
Yeah.
Like, she just is not okay.
Yeah, that's really tough. And interesting too how she shared her thought process. Like, she was quite calm and rational in the way she was like, I'll research it and none of this applies to this context, and
also, like, the assumption that a Gen Zer or a Gen Y isn't going to go to Google first. Yeah. Like, they are the generation that is going to go to Google first.
I think all smart people go to Google first,
yeah,
and they don't know what the answer is.
Exactly. Oh, it just was just like, this poor girl.
Yeah, it's really, I think the hard thing is too, like, we seem to remember our bad bosses and our great bosses. Yet it's such a spectrum, right? Like, there's a whole lot in between. And
great bosses can have moments with our bad bosses. Yeah. And bad bosses can have moments with our great bosses.
Yeah, true. I guess it's how they behave most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, when I hear some of that behaviour, I go, I suspect that person probably behaves like that most of the time. Yeah. So they're probably closer to the bad boss end of the continuum.
The state that she was in would say as much, yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, though? Have you had any bad bosses, and what are some of the behaviours?
Yeah, I have, and I definitely think gaslighting is number one.
Yeah.
And just this, I think the main thing that stands out for me for bad bosses was a terrible lack of communication.
Yeah.
Like, terrible communication skills, and really, like, a deep lack of clarity.
Yeah.
On what they're wanting to even achieve, what they're wanting to do, and pair that with an inability to communicate well, and you've just got a shitstorm. Especially when you're early in your career and you are needing guidance. Like, you are actively, it's an expectation that I certainly had, and also just something that if I had leaders in my team that had younger team members, it would be an explicit expectation that they would be able to communicate and give purpose and lead journeys and guide younger team members.
What's so amazing though, right, is as you talk about those skills, I go, agreed. There's no formal way of learning those skills though, right? So
yeah, I mean, to be fair, we don't get taught it. Like,
no. And arguably in business they're labelled as this, you know, quotation marks, soft skills. Yet they're the ones that make a difference.
Yeah.
And the impact, all those examples that you talked through about what made the things that were missing, if those things were in place, that's what you get from a good manager.
Yeah.
But how do you develop those competencies? Like, there's not, yes, you can go to a training course on some of those topics, but not really. But you've actually still got to apply and develop the skill. It's like when you play tennis. You can't just, read a book or watch a video on playing tennis. You actually have to get on a court and have a go. And over time you build competency. And so same with your management journey. And it's almost, I wonder if it's almost an environment, an echo chamber where someone who doesn't have those skills doesn't recognize that they're missing in themselves. So when they hire people that are of their own kind who also don't have those skills, they don't know that they're missing and don't give them feedback. So they don't, it becomes this perpetuating negative cycle where no one builds competency in how to have direct communication.
Terrible culture, and those that want purpose and want guiding leave. Yeah. Like I can imagine that the next step for this girl is to go elsewhere.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And what was really interesting is I was reading up on the Mayo Clinic, and they were saying that your supervisor at work is more important to your health than your family doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. And yet we have this perception that health equals doctor, yet health is how you're treated on the daily. So
that's from a perspective of the amount of stress and the amount of at work.
Yeah. The impact your manager. So a poor performing manager will impact you so significantly that your total well-being will be so impacted.
Wow. I mean, I'm not wowing because I'm like, oh, I did not expect that. I'm just like, I just don't think I'd ever really looked at it that deeply before.
Yeah, or likened it to that type of provider, because you see it, wellness equal, to go from poor health to good health, you might engage with, some kind of Eastern or Western medicine as you see fit. To put your manager in that same context in terms of how they can negatively impact you. Yeah, I was like, that's actually a really powerful way of looking at the significance of it.
So what you're saying is a bad manager could be like a packet of smokes.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. Don't do it.
Wow. Okay. Yep. That is really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think what was also interesting is there was a piece of research done on LinkedIn. A few hundred participants were asked whether they were happier and less stressed when their boss called in sick, was absent from work, or went on vacation. 88% said yes. Life is good when my boss is away. I don't care whether they're sick or in Fiji. As long as they're not here, I'm way happier.
Do you just think because everyone relaxes a little bit more and there's less expectation to grind, or what do you think that comes from? Yeah, because that's a high number. That's most people.
What that says to me is that we've still, in a lot of workplaces, stuck in this Western industrialized work environment where you've got to be seen to grind out the whole day, be in the office, perform, this productivity bias.
Yeah.
Whereas when I read that, I go, well, I'd be really disappointed if my team felt like that, because I'd want to create a culture where we all contribute and our roles add value equally, even though there might be different responsibilities for a manager. The contribution from the whole team is where it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And so I think some workplaces it wouldn't look like that.
No.
But I would suspect overall, if you're still working in a 9-to-5 kind of traditional work environment.
Forced back in the office after COVID kind of situation. Yeah.
Elon Musk is demanding you back in the office. Some of that weird stuff, I can imagine that's... And also autocratic leaders. I do think, we have all 5 generations in the workforce right now, and there are some generational biases around work style.
Yeah.
And if you prefer an autocratic leadership style, yet your direct workforce don't, then you're like, oh, thank God they're not here today.
Yeah. And especially even in the type of industry that you're in, right? There's lots of different styles of leadership that are needed for different types of roles and
totally.
Yeah.
But I think about when we worked together in Wellington, we had the same culture whether our boss was there or not.
Yeah.
He was part of our culture.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it was actually really fun. And so in my mind, I think of cultures like that, and I go, well, that's ultimately what a good workplace looks like and feels like. Yeah. And so we had that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to
I'm thinking about wine in the boardroom with him there.
Yeah, and so I think I think that culture there though was, we're all here to do something good. We're all working it's that purpose stuff.
Yeah, and it's also alignment.
Yeah, alignment of purpose. Yeah. And everyone was on board with it, and everyone was moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And I think that led to a culture where we were all, whilst there was a hierarchy, it meant that there was a sort of more, it was flatter than it might have been if we were all sort of got different purposes and different directions we were heading.
Yeah, and I also think he was a leader that was really collaborative.
Yeah.
So the culture wasn't dictated by his view. It was shaped by all of us.
Yeah.
which I think impacted nicely.
Yeah.
So I thought there's some good lessons in what a good culture looks like and what a good boss looks like. So when I read that stat, I was kind of like, yeah, I've got examples of where it didn't matter whether the boss was there or not, but I also definitely have examples of where life was better when the boss was not there.
I was just easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was super interesting when I was prepping for this, and I'd written this in the blog post, there was this post by JA Culture on Medium, and they talked about bad bosses, and they came up with 6 toxic personas.
Oh my God, hit me. You know I love the persona.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I was like, the marketer in you is going to be so happy at this. So number 1, they called Hawkeye. So they micromanage en masse.
Oh, and so they like need to know where you are every hour of the day. What are you doing? Have you done 8 hours?
Give me access to all your documents.
Yeah. What
Email
are you
me on
hiding?
this.
What meetings have you got? Yeah.
Make sure your calendar's open.
Yeah, CC me on everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Number 2 was dictator of expectations. And so quite demanding, but they're always searching for proof. So you have to prove that you've done what you said you would.
Talk me through that one a little bit more.
Yeah, so dictator of expectations. So here's what I need from you. Show me when you've done it. I want evidence. So similar a wee bit to basically neither of those two have any trust in anybody. It's unless I see it, touch it, feel it, know it every minute of the day.
Show me what the outcome is.
Yeah. The screamer is number 3.
So just self-explanatory, just screaming.
Reckless, retrospective, always in an emotional state.
Oh, fun times.
Number 4 is the culture undertaker. They are careless about culture. They don't care. They're just doing things their way.
So just someone that might not necessarily be the right type of person to manage lots of different types of people and just does things their way. My way or the highway.
Yeah, and depending on their emotional state.
Yeah, okay. I'm just like clocking out like that one. Yep, I've had one of those.
Yeah, totally.
Feels like bingo.
Yeah. You've definitely had this one. Manic manipulator, the agent of passive aggression.
Oh my God. Yep, I've had that one.
This one made me laugh. The 6th one is Captain Titanic. They're living in the past.
Captain Titanic. This is how we've always done it.
This is how we do things around here.
Yeah.
We can't change this because.
Yeah. Or why would we fix it? It's not that broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, worked with a few of those.
Yeah.
So I added another one to this list.
Oh, so you got 7.
I added the 7th, which is the general of goalpost shifting.
Okay.
And that's the person who does other things quite well and gives you a clear expectation of what they need. And then when you're nearly finished, they move.
So they've seen what that outcome might look like and they've gone, oh, actually, no, I actually want this bit. Yeah.
Because they haven't thought it through themselves.
Yeah.
And then they get so caught up in the momentum of things that they're always searching for the next thing. So either it's not right to do it differently now that I know I've got new insight.
Yeah.
Or no, not that. Now this. Now this. Now this. So you never finish. So you never feel like you've achieved anything.
Or accomplished anything.
Yeah, you're just always feeling busy.
Yeah.
And you don't understand why. And you're just responsive to tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, definitely know some of those.
Interesting. So bad boss bingo.
Yeah.
How many do you reckon you've got experience with? Got a full Yahtzee?
Probably do have a full Yahtzee, actually. Probably do.
Yeah, I reckon I do as well.
Yeah. I was thinking about the bad bosses that I had, and I was having a bit of a laugh because I worked for a wholesale welding company years ago, and the guy that was the manager, he had an office, and when I had been there a few weeks, I overheard some of the other staff members calling him the Albatross. And I didn't know why. And I was like, oh, I'll wait. And I'll ask one of the guys that I trust and be like, hey, why do you call him the Albatross? And they said because they always find him in his office in the old school power pose where he's behind his desk and he's in the chair with his hands up behind his head and he's reclining back on his chair. And when someone would walk into his office, because he was sitting literally doing sweet FA, like he was just leaning back doing nothing while us little worker bees were frantic. And so if someone would walk into his office and to get his, his fancy leather business chair upright, he'd have to like fling his body forward. So his arms would flail about like a big albatross as soon as you walked into the room. And so he literally just sat in his office all day and did nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he was the albatross and everyone was like, what is he doing? Like he had no idea what the rest of us were doing and we had no idea what he was doing. And I'm like, that wasn't on the list. So I was like, the the lights are on but no one's home. Like, I'm here at work but I'm not here at work. The albatross.
I'm here for the paycheck and that's it.
It was totally, he had no idea. It was someone who was promoted well above his capability level, and his way of dealing with it was just to
do nothing.
Kick back with his legs on the desk and recline on the leather chair until someone knocked on his door.
Be reactive.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Jesus Christ. Sometimes you wonder how those people have got into those positions, right?
Well, he got managed out, and then an amazing lady came in.
Great.
He's now a good friend of mine still.
Amazing. Oh, man. So in terms of, there's lots of different types of bad bosses. Mm-hmm. But I guess the hard part is, what are some good ways of dealing with those different types, those different things? Like that poor girl that's getting gaslit and just can't win and is being demeaned. Like, what do you do? Because I've been in that situation before, and we were friends when I was in that situation, and I was a fucking mess.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the doctor comment, right? It erodes all of your sense of self, your confidence.
Yeah. It
affects every part of your life outside of work.
Yeah.
Like, the impact of a bad boss reaches far beyond the workplace.
Yeah.
It is awful. And it's so hard because every situation is so different. And, all things being equal outside of work, if that was happening at work, then I think it's one of those situations where you have to try and find a way of working with that person.
Yeah.
And that managing up is a really important concept to wrap your head around.
So figuring out how they work, how to deal with them. Yeah. Absolutely.
And asking for what you need.
Yeah.
One of the things when I thought about this, I was like, not all managers are created equal, and they're not, and we're all human. So how they might behave on one day might change over time, and hopefully someone grows in their awareness of their poor behaviours and evolves.
Yeah.
It might not. But I think you do need to manage up to get what you need, because you can't control their behaviour.
Yeah.
It's about your behaviour.
Yeah.
And then if it is toxic, and that situation that you were in, get the hell out. There's some people that no matter how you try to engage with them and work with them are going to be really toxic for you.
Yeah.
And so getting the hell out. And I think one of the things that I was writing about when I was working on the chapter in the book for this, that I just wanted to touch on a wee bit, is if you want to get yourself out of a job where you've got a toxic manager, you need to be in a financial position to do so. Mm-hmm. Every person I know that's had sustained period of mistreatment from their manager, or really disengaged, like a poor work environment,
like wants to leave.
The reason they've had to stay is usually financial,
yep,
or their confidence.
Yep.
And I think if you can eliminate in advance the financial one, and knowing even just 3 months of your basic expenses in a savings account means you don't have handcuffed,
beholden to it.
Exactly. And I think that would be the worst situation, is when you're treated poorly like that young girl. I would hope that she had enough financial independence to make a choice and go somewhere else, because staying in that environment, all that's going to do is damage your confidence over time. And so I think, there's a piece of me that is give yourself permission to leave and have the finances in place to do so. And often I think that doesn't normally get talked about. It's easy for us to sit here and say, or just quit.
Yeah.
But actually,
that's
pragmatically.
Not the reality of it. And you're so right. Like, the other part of that, like, if you can eliminate the financial aspect of it, then you just have to deal with the sense of self and the confidence loss. And because, that kind of stuff was even in that TikTok, and she's talking about how she needs to be more proactive and more resourceful, and just beating her down, just like criticism, going back to like that criticism versus feedback episode. It's just constant microaggressions to drill you down and make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah, and it didn't sound like she was able to have a two-way dialogue with her manager either, which is really hard, because if you don't feel heard, then you're not going to shift the dial. And that's when I go, that's when you'd want to leave. I think, what's the sign that your manager isn't someone you're going to be able to influence and engage with, is when you're not able to have your voice heard.
Yeah.
And I think that's, it's every person will know what that feels like. Some people will be comfortable saying something 3 or 4 times to be heard. Others will be like, I've told you once and I'm out. So I'd say give someone a couple of shots at it. But if your voice isn't being heard by your manager, then that's probably not a culture where you're going to be able to contribute meaningfully or be treated well.
One piece of advice I would have is find someone at work someone that you work with that you can have a very realistic conversation with, because I know from being in that situation myself, it is all consuming, it is all encompassing. That person, because they've created this environment where you question yourself, you question every word that comes out of their mouth, you question every word that comes out of your mouth, the situation ramps up to be bigger than Ben-Hur. Like in your own head, it becomes this thing. And so finding a person that you can get a different perspective on the same conversations or situations that you've all been in together is a great way of just settling yourself, benchmarking, because I've definitely been in a situation where I've made it bigger than it needed to be because of my perception, my sense of self, and the person that I was dealing with, and the length of time I was dealing with it.
Yeah, it's that whole thing around, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are.
Yeah.
And so if we've been treated in such a way that our perception has changed, then we will view everything through that lens. And so having a person that you trust to calibrate to is so important.
Yeah. And someone that is brave enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Or tell you a less emotional truth.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, is really important.
Yeah, that's so true. So then you can make an informed decision rather than feeling quite beaten down by the situation.
Yeah. And like sometimes, we've all been there. I've been the drama queen. I've been the one that's maybe gone OTT on a specific comment. And so like having someone going, look, I know it is a bad situation, but you probably overreacted to that one because it is a bad situation. Maybe just pull back a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to manage yourself and manage your mental health in that process as well.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, because it goes back to that episode on feedback versus criticism. If we want to be trusted by our peers, we have to be able to deliver feedback to them that they might feel uncomfortable hearing. And so that colleague that was able to have that dialogue with you, there's real power in that information, you receiving that information.
Yeah.
But it's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially when someone's upset and, oh my God, did you say, in that meeting I felt like this and she was saying this or he was doing that.
Yeah.
Having someone to go, yes, those things did happen. However, my take on it looked a bit different.
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing to do.
It is really hard. But I think it's so important, because I've definitely been in cultures where, maybe there is someone that just doesn't fit, or they're just not the right person for that organisation. They're not necessarily a bad manager, but they've maybe badly managed one person. Mm-hmm. And you have to be so careful of the people jumping on that bandwagon and it becoming this echo chamber. And, we all have work friendships, and I've definitely seen groups of people just ramp themselves up and make it worse and worse and worse, and just something that it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And so the person that can go, I get where you're coming from, but I feel like this is a bit OTT.
Yeah.
Is so important.
Yeah. Otherwise you end up with groupthink.
Yeah.
And you end up with a Mean Girls Club.
Oh, totally. And then you just end up pushing that person. You do exactly what, well, not exactly, but you turn it into a situation where the manager themselves feels deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, and also and then I think too that's quite victim-y language, in the sense that all of the blame for the interaction goes to one person.
Yeah.
And I think in any environment, if we look at that TikTok, both parties have a role to play around that interaction, and both parties, if they took a step back, would be, well, maybe I should have picked up the phone, maybe I shouldn't have said that in an email,
Yeah.
There's always two sides and some responsibility. It's never one person's 100% responsible for an interaction.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that, the way one person reacts isn't wrong, or is wrong, or either way. It's just that you have to have two people to have a conversation. Yeah,
and we're all human and we've all got growth to go on. No one's perfect.
Yeah. As much as we try.
And we try, yeah. What was super interesting too is I was like, sometimes when you're looking at the negative, so what a bad boss does, it's really nice to draw the contrast around what a good boss does. And so I always love the work that Gallup do around this space. And they talked about the top 4 qualities that people want from a manager. And the first one was managers who show care, interest, and concern for their staff.
Yeah.
The second one was to know what is expected of them.
Yeah.
The third one is a role which fits their abilities.
Yeah.
And the fourth was positive feedback and recognition regularly for work done well. And so I was really pleased when I read that because I was like, we kind of talked to some of this stuff in some of our earlier episodes, especially the feedback versus criticism one, where we were like, give feedback and recognition regularly, early. Don't, if the first time you hear you've done a good job is in your annual performance review, that's not okay. And I think what was also super interesting for me was the second one. So to know what is expected of them.
Oh, it's so important. People need clarity. Yeah. People need, as soon as you stop communicating and make people draw their own lines, you just instantly open up a can of worms and a world of hurt.
Yeah. and different operating styles. Some people quite like being told there's the finish line, figure it out. And other people are like, show me the 17 steps to get to the finish line. And I think as a manager, it's really important that you understand what style the person is that you're setting an expectation for, and you help them in a way that's meaningful for them rather than doing it in your own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that we, we do not get taught is in a workplace how to adapt, how to understand everyone's different work styles, and also how to adapt our work styles as well. Because we've all worked with those people that go, I work this way and I will not change it.
Totally. It's so funny when you say that. And just had this light bulb moment. So early on in my career, did a lot of sales training. And interestingly, I think every single thing I learned in sales training has become the most impactful in leadership.
Interesting.
Because good salespeople read the situation and communicate in a way that's appropriate for the person they're engaging with, but they're well prepared in advance. There's a lot of, in New Zealand we see sales as quite dismissive, and we kind of don't value sales as a profession.
Because we think of car sales and real estate. Skeezy salespeople.
Skeezy salespeople, yeah. But ultimately, the great salespeople are high in integrity. It's a value exchange. Yeah. And everyone around the table feels respected, understood, and has their needs met. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what you want from your leadership, right? Whether that's, your supervisor at your after-school job at the fish and chip shop, or the CEO of the ASX NZX listed company that you're working for. It doesn't matter what role you're in. You want to be treated like you matter. And it was interesting too, I was reflecting on, when I said about the good boss, bad boss spectrum. I had this boss when I was living in Brisbane, and in a way grateful to him because he gave me a massive opportunity, but he was a hard person to work for. He was super high IQ but very low EQ, and I was definitely the token diversity hire.
So when you say diversity hire, you're a woman.
And I was under 30.
Oh, okay.
At the time. Not now. The good old days. And he, for some reason, he was going on this real journey for himself spiritually, and we had to know all about it.
I love that you say that like that, like you don't do it yourself.
I do, but his was quite contrived in the sense that he had an affair and his wife kicked him out, and
so he had to go on a spiritual journey. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
forced spiritual journey.
Such a cliche as well. Like it was from one of the younger girls at work. Bad. He will never listen to this, so I'll never get in trouble. So thank God. And so, forced spiritual journey. So I felt quite inauthentic. And he was really book smart. So he would read all these books around spirituality and what good leadership looks like and being empathetic and all of this. And then he would apply them at work in a real
mechanical
engineer's way. Yeah.
Exactly how you should apply EQ.
Yeah, it really did feel like a process that was engineered. And when he was doing some one-on-ones with all of us, one of the things he did as a result of that was actually really good. It was regular one-on-ones and not job-based, like no kind of prepare your KPIs and give me an update. It was a check-in meeting, and it was really good actually. And you could kind of bring to the table whatever you wanted to talk through with him, which was really helpful. And then at the end of one of those sessions, he was like, I've got a question I'm asking everyone in the leadership team.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, yeah, okay, here we go. And he goes, what is the legacy you want to leave? And I'd literally been in his team for a month or two, not very long.
You were like, what, in life or?
Yeah, I was like, what's the context? And he's like, yeah, your legacy. And I was like, can I sleep on that? I'm come back to you tomorrow. And he goes, yeah, okay. So I came back to him and I said, I want every person in my team to feel highly valued. Like their voice matters. They have an impact. I want people to know that they matter. And he goes, don't you want to run the most profitable business unit? I was like, that'll happen. Like, that just happens. If you treat people with respect and you harness the collective power,
things will go well.
Awesome things happen.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I've got all the answers. I need everyone else to show up and contribute. And then if we all do that, we'll all be on the finish line and life will be amazing for all of us.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. Like, it was just this weird judgment.
That's the thing, is like, he's not adapting to going, okay, I've got someone here that was really people focused. Great. I know how I can use that person to better the rest of the organization because they've got that side of the coin.
No, there was none of that. He was just so, it was almost like there wasn't a chapter on that in the book, so I didn't really know how to handle it.
Deal with it.
Yeah, so what was really interesting though, so the reason I remembered it, because I would say, it wasn't a bad manager, wasn't a great manager, but that moment in particular was poor management from him in terms of how he ran the conversation. But the fact that he asked that question was game-changing for me, because it gave me absolute clarity and helped me define what kind of leader I wanted to be. And what was super interesting is, fast forward 6 months from there, the team restructured and I inherited a whole new team, and I leaned into that to the nth degree and got everyone together off-site and got everyone to kind of crowdsource the strategic plan, because I was like, I've got no idea how we're going to do this. It was post-GFC, things were really tough. We were the only team in the whole of the Asia Pac region to hit our revenue and profit targets.
Of course you were.
And everyone was like, what did you do? And I was like,
asked people what their expertise was and then got them to apply it.
Yeah, help them set the vision.
Yeah.
Spent time with them, listened, collaborated, like ran interference so people got out of their way. Like, my job was almost to be the support function to enable them to do their work, which was the opposite of the way that things had typically been done. And I know that if I'd focused on profit, there's no way we would have done it. And so I just loved that I was proven right in an environment. But what it showed me was, you can read all the leadership books under the sun. You can lean into learnings on vulnerability. You can be the CEO crying on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like there was this week. You can read and do all of that stuff. But if it's not authentic and you don't genuinely mean it, you can't support your people on their journey. And you've got to continue to grow and evolve your management style. And so, that I left that organization mainly because of that one leader. And, you hear that saying all the time. People join organizations and they leave managers. And then there's an argument to say that that's not true. But ultimately, if your manager makes your life so miserable, you'll leave. But also for me, if you're not engaged and your manager's values don't align with yours, it's really hard to stay in an environment where I was like, he only cares about the bottom line and I really care. I truly believe, like, I want to work in a high-performing team. I want to hit the profit targets, absolutely, or whatever the organization's objective are. But I want to do it in a really fun and engaged way. And he didn't care about that. And so I think when I think about bad managers, I'm like, well, actually, he wasn't a good manager because there was no way of...
He hadn't set that connected purpose.
Yeah, not at all.
I think there was some research that came out this week, and it was research from the States as to why people have been leaving their job over the last 2 years, and it was because there was no purpose and direction. There wasn't competitive salaries. There was too much work, like, just the standard things. But
the basics.
Big one was someone wasn't. There was no connected purpose. There was nothing to drive us forward together.
Yeah. So I thought it was so super interesting just thinking about, while there is a spectrum and bad managers aren't always in your face and aggressive or bullies, like, or just gaslighting psychopaths like the TikTok dude. There is such a spectrum. And if the takeout for me was, if you feel like you're not able to contribute and your voice isn't being heard, then you probably do have a bad manager.
And I think there's, for me, it's all about adaptability. Like, I think what defines a bad boss, but also a bad relationship with your boss, is where they're not adaptable to your style and you're not adaptable to their style. A good relationship is where you both understand where each other's coming from and what your strengths are, and play to both of those things. And that is a chef's kiss situation.
I was like, that's some Tinder advice from Kels.
Absolutely not. That's a whole other, that's a different episode. But like that there, I think, there is, if you've got a psychopathic abusive boss, that's not on you. But one thing that you can do to make it easier for you if you've just got someone on that spectrum of good to bad is figure out how they work and adapt your style to that and manage up, like you said.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to tackle it in the first instance.
Yeah, I think you're so right. Calibrate with some colleagues, manage up.
Yeah.
If you can't get cut through and it's really impacting you, manage yourself out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, I've had experiences where you walk in and you go, okay, I can see what this type of person is. They are 100 miles an hour in that direction until the wind changes and they go that direction. Cool. So what I need to do is adapt my style to get to talk about what I need and manage that person in this way.
Yeah.
And often when you come at it that way, they go, oh, actually, I can see what they're doing. Okay, I need to adapt my style to meet them as well if they're a good manager or a good boss.
They have EQ.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, there is, it's a little bit of an A-list lens on it that sometimes there are neuro things that mean that people aren't have as much EQ as others. But that doesn't mean that you can't be explicit with them and recognise that might be part of who they are and work in a way that you can both get the best out of that situation as well.
I guess for me, that's what I took when I say managing up, that's what I mean. Because
Yeah.
there is a point where there is subtle influence and there's also asking for what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have clarity, for example, so, one of the challenges with with a poor manager is micromanaging. So too much focus on what steps you need to take. And the other is vague expectations.
Yeah.
So if you need more time to get things done, you need to ask for it. If you need more clarity on what needs to be done, you need to ask for it. So I do think there's still a responsibility in those first instances, whereas I think there's this fine line between a bad boss and bullying behavior. And I think we probably should have jumped that in at the start. What we're not talking about people that are bullies, because those behaviors are really, it's quite clear what bullying looks like.
That's abuse.
Yeah, that's abuse, and that's never okay.
Yeah.
We're just talking about managers that are just pretty shit. And
Yeah, that make life hard.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, to wrap up, is there any final thoughts from you?
So for me, it was more about, as you and we all continue on our growth journey and we become bosses, you learn a lot from the bad bosses you've had. And so I think it's really cool to take those lessons and learn them, understand what engages people, make time for your team separate to the busy work, and keep growing in your own leadership style and journey. And like you say, adapt, because every context will be different. And just because you had an ace team, I could easily go, yeah, that team I had ace things and it was a great approach. But that was the context then. And so knowing that you've got to keep learning and growing and adapting yourself, every leadership context will be different. So yeah, learn the lessons from the bad bosses and bake them in, and then become a badass boss yourself.
Turn a bad boss into a badass boss.
Yes.
I like it.
What about you, Cass? What's your wrap up?
My wrap up is that it is, like you said, it's all contextual. But at the end of the day, you need to look after yourself and you need to look after your mental health and your stress levels. And if your manager is not someone that you can, or your boss is not someone that you can talk to about it, then you need to start taking steps to make your life better. And whether that is the financial stability, or whether that is building up your confidence, whether it's creating strong, trusted relationships with other people in the organisation, take the steps that you need to. But know that, again, like we said, abuse and belittling and that real horrible stuff is just never okay. And so you need to make sure that you're not taking it. Don't sit down and take it, because it's not okay. Don't laugh. What's your tweet of the week?
So mine's kind of a 2-in-1 tweet of the week. So Dr. Hayley Lewis, she tweeted, "One of my all-time favourite books on management is Good Boss, Bad Boss by Professor Robert Sutton. To avoid the pitfall of hubris, believing one's own hype and using your power as a manager irresponsibly, heed Bob's advice in this week's quote." And then she shares Bob's quote. Mm-hmm. "Give the people you lead the permission and responsibility to tell you when you're out of touch or full of yourself, and to develop mentors and friends who will tell you the ugly truth as well."
Feels very appropriate for today's conversation.
Look at you. And you'd already kind of said to do that. So well done, Kels.
I'm going, do you know what? I think we've talked enough about bad bosses, I'm going to play my TikTok of the week is something just heartwarming and lovely, and I fucking love it.
Yay!
I swear, kids are living proof that homophobia is a taught behaviour, because a kid that I was working with today was like, Hannah, do you have a boyfriend? They always ask that question. And I'm not going to hide who I am. So I was like, no, I don't have a boyfriend. I'm not interested in dating boys. And he was like, oh, so you want to have a girlfriend? I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, he said, I don't know any girls who have girlfriends. And I said, what do you think about that? And he was like, well, does that also mean that boys can have boyfriends? I was like, yeah, of course it does. And he was like, wow, think how many more people can be in love now. What? Honestly, my heart melted a little bit. Like, this kid is so...
How cute is that?
Oh, that's adorable.
I was just like, oh my God, what a sweetheart.
Oh, it's so true, though. Kids don't have those biases.
We're not born with that shit.
No, what do you say? They're like empty little vessels.
Yeah, they're just like little drunk humans with nothing, don't know where they are. They don't know what's going on. And that shit is taught. And I just love that. Like, think about how many more people that could be loved.
That's so cute.
I know. I was just like, that was my COVID TikTok, and I was like, oh, it's gonna make me cry.
Oh, I really like that. Yes.
All right. Well, that is it from us this week. Thank you so much for listening into the Careering Podcast again. We love that you are still with us on this journey. Thank you so much. As always, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, and then we are on all of the social medias, including the TikTok and the Twitter and the Instagram and all of the pieces of the puzzle. And of course, we would love a 5-star rating, pretty please. Please don't give us anything less than 5 stars. We're very sensitive. And until next time, get out there, back yourself, and don't put up with bad bosses.